a lot of fans of the books from all over the world, when they come to Edinburgh, they go to the street that Rebus lives on to look at that. They go to the police station where he works, which is a real police station. And then they go to the Oxford Bar, which is a real bar where he drinks. And they are always disappointed.
Dzień dobry Państwu. W kolejnym odcinku Zabójczego Pocisku witamy naszego niezwykłego gościa. Ianem Rankin, literacki ojciec Johna Rebusa oraz wielu innych bohaterów krwistej, mrocznej, kryminalnej powieści wprost ze Szkocji, odwiedził nas w redakcji i mam nadzieję udzieli nam kilku pytań. Hello and welcome in Warsaw.
Thank you.
So first of all, you know Edinburgh very well. And judging from your recent novel, you are not stranger to Polish history of Second World War. Perhaps you heard about Corporal Wojtek, the bear of Polish army. Do you know the story? Do you know the statue in Edinburgh?
Absolutely. Not only is the bear very famous and has his own statue in Princes Street Gardens, but there's now a band, a music group called Wojciech the Bear, a Scottish group.
Yes, I think this is one of our best ambassadors abroad and perhaps one of the most famous Poles of the 20th century, although Wojtek, of course, never been in Poland himself. But Edinburgh, the place where you spent a lot of time and your characters spent even more. Do you feel somehow limited by the place? Do you think that, especially in your recent novel, your characters are going around more and visiting more and more, but still the northern part, still it's Scotland. Do you love the city so much that you feel that is still your imaginary home, or you feel the need to broaden up your scope, to send your characters somewhere else?
Edinburgh is the main character in my books. I arrived in Edinburgh as a student when I was 18 years old, 1978. I barely knew the place, and I began writing stories about Edinburgh to try and make sense of the place and to help me explore it in a creative way. And that process is ongoing. I can't imagine the stories being set anywhere else because Edinburgh is a Jekyll and Hyde city. It's a city that on the surface seems to be very cultured and civilized, but just beneath the surface, it can be raw and vicious and dangerous.
Is this particular angle something you're proud of? Because I think that most Polish readers, when thinking about Edinburgh, they're thinking about more enlightenment philosophers, not especially about Jekyll and Hyde, and especially not about the murders, about this crime and field. Do you think that you're doing your city some kind of disservice because you're exploring this more, dark side of life there?
Well, readers seem to like it, including readers in Edinburgh. They know that they live in a real city, not just a Disneyland. It's not just a living museum. It's a complex, modern city with the same problems and issues that every city in the world faces, to do with greed and corruption and people who feel dispossessed, who have nothing, who feel that life and the economy is failing them. They feel frustrated. So all of that is contained in Edinburgh. Tourists arrive and they see the surface. They see the castles, the museums, the tartan, the bagpipes. But there is this other Edinburgh that I think is really interesting. And readers come to my books because they're getting quite a broad picture of a real city, not just the surface, the city that you photograph when you visit, but the real city which most of us live in.
Do you think that your novels could be some kind of, tourist guide? Could John Rebus' novel could be condensed to be some kind of tourist guide for this other side of the city?
For a long time, there was an Edinburgh tourist guide who did a Rebus tour, and he would take you around the places where the books take place, where some of the situations and the events happen, and also would then incorporate Edinburgh's history, especially some of the darker episodes from Edinburgh's history, because it hasn't always been a safe, cultured city. It used to be a very dangerous city. And so, I think people are fascinated by that. And the reason the tours no longer take place is that the tour guide retired and no one has filled his place. But you can use the books as a guide to a different Edinburgh. A lot of fans of the books from all over the world, when they come to Edinburgh, they go to the street that Rebus lives on to look at that. They go to the police station where he works, which is a real police station. And then they go to the Oxford Bar, which is a real bar where he drinks. And they are always disappointed because there is no Rebus there. There's only me. And I am much less interesting than Inspector Rebus. He's dark, brooding, dangerous, complex. And they don't find him, they find me.
Let's go back to the guide, this idea of tourist attraction. Maybe you try to do it yourself, to guide, maybe not all that is possible, but your most faithful readers, your author's guide of Edinburgh, that you are taking them to the place where John Rebus gained his fame.
I don't have enough time. I don't have enough free time to do that. I'm too busy writing books. But on my website, if you go to ianemrankinem.net, I think there is a map, an interactive map of central Edinburgh, and you can use that, and you can self-guide your way around Edinburgh. And it is a very interesting city to walk around because it is very condensed. It's very small. Population of maybe 500,000 people, 500,000 people. And you can walk around central Edinburgh in a day, no problem at all. So you can visit a lot of not only the historic sites, but also some of the interesting modern sites. And if you follow Rebus's adventures, you'll also be introduced to quite a few good bars.
But what are your experiences with Warsaw? Do you know this place only by your few visits here? Maybe perhaps you sense something special in this place. Would ever, in case in some bizarre event, John Rebus was here, and maybe he would be connected to some criminal investigation, would you write about this?
Well, Rebus doesn't really like travelling. He doesn't have a passport. He barely leaves Edinburgh. So it might be difficult to take him outside the UK. But he does have Polish roots. I discovered this halfway through the series when I met a guy in a bar in Edinburgh whose name was Joe Rebus. And he told me, oh, it's a Polish name. And I had no idea because a rebus is also, in English, a type of puzzle. And that was why I named my detective Rebus, was after the puzzle. But then this guy, Joe Rebus, said, no, my family came here from Poland and we settled here before World War II. And Joe and his son are the only two Rebuses in Scotland, as far as I know. So I went, oh, okay, Rebus has Polish roots. And that made sense to me because when I was at school, when I was young, quite a lot of the kids in my school had Polish surnames because their families had moved to Scotland before World War II or during World War II, and he worked in shipyards and he worked in coal mining. I thought, okay, yeah, it makes sense to me that Rebus is probably Polish.
Okay, so far in Polish there was over 20 volumes of your Rebus series. I guess the last one I read was 23rd, I guess, and I'm perfectly aware that the story is going on, but I still haven't read the new novels still in English. But tell me, what was the experience to guide this character through the, well, for now it's almost 4 decades, right? Because from 1987 to almost 4 decades. What changed? How you grew to like or dislike your hero? What was the experience and all the trials, all the tribulations to guide this particular character through the, well, almost different epochs?
Well, in 2 or 3 minutes, I'll explain as much as I can. When I invented Rebus, he was meant to exist only for 1 book. And I wrote that book, and I then went away and tried to become a spy writer and a thriller writer. But this character had got under my skin. He refused to leave me alone. So I wrote a 2nd book and a 3rd book. And then he retired. Eventually, he reached retirement age because I decided he would live in real time. And I thought, that's it. I can't write any more books with him. But he still refused to leave. So although he was retired, I found ways to bring him into police investigations. So I've grown old with him. You know, I started writing these books when I was in my 20s. I'm now in my 60s. He started off, he was 40. He's now nearly 80. So we've grown up together. And it's been a really interesting experience. It was never meant to be a series. It was never meant to go on for this long. But as I write about him, I learn more about him. So with each book, I learn a little bit more about this really interesting, complex person. And he's not a lot of fun to be around, but he's a very interesting person to spend time with. So I guess that's why I've kept doing it. But meantime, the world is changing. The world around me has changed. The world around him has changed. And the nice thing for me about making him age in real time is that I can reflect the changes taking place in the world. The changes taking place in him as he gets older and frail and has health issues and he retires and everything else. But also he looks around him at the world and sees how quickly the world is changing. And like everybody else, I'm confused by the speed at which the world is changing and the way that people operate in that world is changing. And Rebus is like me. He's got questions and he's trying to work out how he fits in to this changing world. So I guess what I'm saying is these books have been therapy for me. Much, much cheaper than going to see a psychotherapist.
Of course, world has changed, but what about the crime novels in general? Do you think that the genre evolved along your character? I mean, when you read your early novels, do you feel, well, pride of accomplishment or somehow, well, feel of distance to this work? Or maybe you feel that the current literature has gone somewhere wrong. There is some charm in the books that were written about 30 years ago that it's no longer with us. What are your thoughts about your early novels and the crime fiction in the 80s and 90s and now?
Well, when I started writing these books, first one was published in 1987, crime fiction was not taken seriously as an art form in the United Kingdom. It was seen as being a lesser form of literature. That has changed. The writers who write crime fiction now are serious writers, and they're taken on big moral questions of good and evil and writing with skill and style. And crime fiction is now taught in high schools and universities, along with other forms of literature. So that's been terrific to see crime fiction accepted as literature and not just as commercial fiction which can be read and thrown away. The way that crime operates has changed, and the people who write crime fiction have to change. So all the technology that's come along has changed the way that crime fiction is written. And crime fiction has always, historically, dealt with the fears of its audience, its contemporary audience. And right now, I think people, readers around the world, are scared of technology. And they're scared that technology is going to be used against them, that their identity could be stolen. There's a general fear that the people you think you can trust, you cannot trust. They're hiding something from you. What is the truth? Where does the truth lie? Is your husband or wife who you really think they are? Do they have some secrets in their past? There's a sort of paranoia in the general population, and the crime fiction is reflecting that. At the same time, police detectives are no longer seen as being necessarily the heroes, because we look around us in the newspapers and we see that police are corrupt, police have broken the law, police attack demonstrators, police arrest the innocent, they cover up their own crimes. And so readers aren't as attracted to police detectives as they once were. So again, writers are turning to different kinds of characters. So they're writing about people who are amateur detectives or pathologists or psychologists. They're not writing about detectives, police detectives. That's been a really interesting change, I think. And if you do write about a police officer, as I do and other writers like Michael Connolly in America does, you have to, you realize that you need to deal with these issues, that the public no longer necessarily believe or trust the police. So in my recent books, I've taken it on board, and I know people like Michael Connolly have done the same thing. But that means that you get a textured novel. It means you get a richer, more complex and more textured form of crime fiction coming along. And I still like writing the books. So,
okay, but suppose that you are just a concerned citizen and you know that in police force there are serving people like John Rebus. Would you feel safe in your everyday life?
I would feel very safe with John Rebus because he is on the side of the angels. Although he may sometimes bend the rules, he does it for the right reasons. He does it to try and capture the bad people and put them in jail. I mean, he's starting to realize, or for a long time now he's realized, that just because you put bad people in jail, crime does not go away. New criminals emerge because there's always, whatever makes people commit criminal acts doesn't go away. But it's fascinating to me and to readers. What makes people do bad things? What is it that causes us to do bad things? And that question has been asked by literature for hundreds of years. And we don't seem to come to any easy conclusions, but we enjoy dealing with the question.
So you mentioned that the recent decades writing about police officer changed your view on the police as an institution. But have you changed your general observation, your general thoughts about human conditions? Do you feel you understood evil something better just writing about evil?
I mean, it's very easy to say that something that happened is evil. An act was an evil act. To point to an individual and say that person is unchanging evil and will always be evil is difficult. I mean, there's few people that I've encountered in my life that I would say are evil people. But we are all capable of doing terrible things, given the right circumstances. All of us. And, it's worrying that we seem to be drifting towards, in some cases, a more totalitarian mindset, and a mindset that is closing down. We thought the internet would open us up to new experiences and new cultures and meeting new people. But it's actually shutting us down and putting us into small tribes, smaller and smaller tribes, who begin to mistrust and fear those who are not in that particular tribe. And so you get this polarization. You're either with us or against us. You're on the side of good or you're on the side of evil. You're us or you're them. And that is concerning to me. That is worrying. And again, I think that crime fiction deals with that big question of good and evil. A long time ago, I made a TV series, a documentary series about evil. And I got access to lots of different people. I was exorcised by the chief exorcist of the Diocese of Rome. I went to death row in Texas to interview a prisoner who'd been on death row for 15 years and was waiting to be executed. I spoke to historians, I spoke to theologians, psychoanalysts, people that worked with the criminally insane. And at the end of the process, I could say, yes, that's an evil act, but it was still difficult for me to say that's an evil individual, that's an evil person. So maybe I failed, is what I'm trying to say. All these books I've written, I've still failed to come to a definitive conclusion.
You mentioned technology a few times. Do you think that writing a good novel, crime fiction, is easier or harder today than it was several or few decades ago? Is your access to the internet, easy communication with the experts, making this easier? Or maybe the bar is higher and higher on the side of your readers, and it making even worse?
Well, certainly there are a lot of great young writers coming along who are doing really interesting things with the crime novel. And as an old timer, I mean, I've been in this game a long time. You look at them and you're quite jealous because they're full of ideas, and I'm slowing down. I really am slowing down. So what have I not done? I'm trying to think, what have I not done yet that I really need to do as a writer? Because time is limited. When I was young, I had all the time in the world. I think the crime novel, though, is for me, it's the whole package. It has a great sense of place. So, for example, if I want to know about Warsaw or Poland, I'll go to the crime fiction written in Poland, because it will tell me about the country, its people, its philosophy of life, the social problems it has, the politics, the food, the drink, the history, all of that I'll get from the crime novel with a terrific sense of place. So, it's like the complete package. For me, it's the only type of novel that really makes sense in the current times. And that's true of any country I go to. I always try and explore the crime fiction of that country if I possibly can, because that's where the truth lies.
And what is the difference in your creative process? What the work looked like when you were writing novels back in old good times and now? Is there amount of effort to put in writing just one book is greater or lesser now than it was some time ago? And what about your personal experiences? Do you like writing now more than in the past, or it's getting less and less magical? That something is lost because we know so much and it's so easy to the knowledge is so easy to access.
There is magic. There is magic in storytelling. The idea that you can conjure up a world from little bits of ink on paper, and people will enter that world willingly for a period of time, is a kind of magic. It is, and I think it's extraordinary that, with the alphabet available to us, any one of us can write a sentence that's never been written before. I find that absolutely extraordinary. It gets harder as you get older, I find. And I've spoken to other crime writers of my generation, and we all have this problem. When I was young, I could write for 10, 15 hours a day. I wouldn't take a break for a meal. I would just keep writing because I was so excited and involved and full of energy. Now, if I write for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, I need to take a break. I'm exhausted. I'm physically and mentally exhausted by a short burst of writing. So it's getting harder. It is getting harder. And you're trying not to repeat yourself. You're trying to explore the world in a different way, even if you're using the same character. You definitely don't want to repeat the stories you've told before. All of that gets, the more books you write, the harder that gets. And the older you get, the less energy you have. But you have wisdom. You have wisdom. And so all the life experiences that I've had, all the people I've met, all the professionals I've talked to, all that information is filed away inside my head. And that's available to me. When I started out, I knew nothing. When I started out, I used my imagination because I had nothing else. I'd never been a police officer. So I had to use my imagination. What's it like to be a police officer? And now I've met lots of police officers, so I know what it's like to be a police officer. And I've met lots of criminals, so I know what it's like to be a criminal. So there's more empathy. I've got more empathy than I used to have when I was young. So I've got empathy and experience. I just lack the energy.
Okay, so imagine that somehow John Rebus would have access to all your books about him, but let's imagine that he somehow not recognizing his own name. But what do you think? Which one would be his favorite, and which would be, well, least favorite?
His least favorite would be the first one, I think, Noughts and Crosses, because it's written by a guy who was a student at the time. And when I read it, I can see that. It's overwritten. It's trying too hard to impress with language and imagery. And eventually I found a more effective voice for my books. But that first book was written by a young man who wanted to show off what he knew. Rebus wouldn't be impressed by that. He's not impressed by people trying to show off what they know. The book that he would like, probably, let me think. I don't know, maybe Black and Blue. Black and Blue was the first really successful novel. I felt the books before that had been a kind of apprenticeship for me. I was learning what the crime novel can and cannot do. So that book was more complex plot. It was a more satisfying blending of 2 or 3 different plots. The themes were bigger. And also it was a big adventure for Rebus because he gets to leave Edinburgh. He goes up to Shetland oil fields, he goes to Aberdeen, he goes to Glasgow. So it was a more all-encompassing book about Scotland. And it was the first time I felt confident to take him out of Scotland, out of Edinburgh, and travel around Scotland. So he would enjoy the travel.
Okay, so let's imagine something else. Perhaps you would be transferred into the body of police detective and you have to start tomorrow detective work. Would it be a good job, a good detective who would be as thorough and as good in his job as John Rebus?
I don't think I would make a good detective. I might make a good Rebus because I'm like him. I'm an outsider. I like to do my own thing. I don't like to work in a team. I find it very difficult to work as part of a team. And in the real world, as a detective, you're a very small part of a big machine. And every part of that machine is equally valuable. Whereas in my books, Rebus is the most important part of the machine. He's the one that gets the work done. He's the one that gets to the truth. So I wouldn't, in the real world, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking orders or doing things that I didn't agree with, the structures of the police. I've very seldom in my life worked well in a big organization. And luckily, I've never had to work as part of a big organization because I just don't do it. I'm not very good at it. I wouldn't be very good at the office politics. I wouldn't be very good at filling in the forms. I would say, why do we need to fill in all these forms? I would like to be like Rebus, but I'm probably not capable of being like Rebus because at heart I'm not really a maverick. He likes bending the rules. He likes getting in trouble. I don't. I don't like getting in trouble. So I would fail. I would fail as a Rebus and I would fail as a real life cop.
Well, somehow we got back to the problem of technology. You mentioned that it's changing and more and more, of course, police work will always some kind of teamwork, but in modern times, I guess it's even more apparent, and the easiness of communication made this every single cog in this machine less important. Do you see the danger of, first of all, twilight of the modern crime fiction as a genre, and the second one, have you ever imagined a future when AI is better detective than actually human?
I think would AI find it difficult to be a detective? It's an interesting question. I mean, we're nowhere near that situation yet. But AI is becoming, or certainly technology is being used in ways that we couldn't have imagined 10 or 20 years ago as a means of helping to solve crimes. It can sift information very quickly. Not always accurately, but it can sift information very quickly. So there are uses. There are positive uses for technology. But an AI detective, geez. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if it's as good as it is at writing crime novels, maybe not. Because my wife got ChatGPT to try and write an Ianem Rankine story recently, and it was terrible. I mean, thank goodness it wasn't very good. But maybe in a year or two's time, if the technology companies keep stealing writers' work to feed into their machines, to get those machines to spew out books that are like theirs, like the real human beings' books, maybe we're entering the matrix slowly but surely. Maybe I won't be around to see it, though.
Let's talk about the other forms of media. Do you think that the both TV series, from the early 21st century and this recent one, did justice to your writings?
I never watched it in the early days. There were 2 previous incarnations of Rebus on TV, and I didn't watch it specifically because I didn't want actors to interfere with the Rebus who was in my head. So, for example, I didn't want to change the way that he spoke or the way that he looked or his physicality.
How did you do this? I would be so curious just to see.
Well, I let my
fiction on the screen.
Instead of me watching it, my wife watched it for me. And I mean, I couldn't help but see little clips of shows and adverts for it and stuff. But I decided I wasn't going to sit and watch the whole series. But the recent incarnation I like because it's so different from the Rebus I now write about that there's no fear of me being, influenced to change my Rebus by the Rebus on screen. Because what they've done is Rebus is in the here and now. He's in the present day, but he's young. He's young. He's in his late 30s, early 40s. And we discussed it. The screenwriter, Gregory Burke, who's a fantastic screenwriter, we discussed it. He said, I want him to be young and macho and get in fights and all that kind of, I want him to be physical. But I want to set the books now because I want to deal with current issues, social issues, political issues. And I said, well, fine. I trust you. If that's what you want to do, do it. And so I sat and watched it, and I thought it was really good. And as we sit here and speak, they're preparing to film season 2. And there's a little script read-through that I'm going to next week. And I'm looking forward to it because I did enjoy that. And I thought the main actor was charismatic. I thought he did a very good job. And all the parts of the Rebus series are there. The ex-wife, the daughter, Siobhan Clarke, his Malcolm Fox, his nemesis, as it were, Cafferty, the gangster. They're all there, but they're there in the present day with a slightly younger Rebus.
Please tell us about your interactions with your readers. Do you have any direct involvement in your social media? Do you respond to letters, to emails? Do you like meeting with your readers face to face?
I'm a control freak, so I have no assistant, no secretary, no nothing. So if you write a letter to the Oxford Bar, it's me who writes back. It's me that goes in and gets it and writes back. People send me books, they send CDs that I should listen to, music they think I would like, postcards, all kinds of things get sent to me via the Oxford Bar. I do my own social media. So if you come across me on Facebook or X or Blue Sky or Threads or wherever, it's me. It's not an assistant, it's not a secretary, it's me who's posting photographs and snippets of information and photos from Warsaw. That'll be going up soon. I've not taken any photographs yet, actually, because I've been so busy. But I must get some photographs tonight and tomorrow so that I can post those on social media. And I won't let it go. I won't let other people do it for me. I want complete control. So yes, I do interact with readers all the time. But also, I'll tell you what's really funny, is when fans make the pilgrimage to the Oxford Bar, and I'm standing at the bar chatting to a few regulars, and they come in and they sit and they have a drink, and then they leave, and they don't recognise me. Because they're looking for John Rebus. They think they'll recognise this dark, dangerous, charismatic individual, and there's this really boring guy standing at the bar, and they don't realise it's me.
Could you tell us about your strangest, more unconventional contact with your readers? Maybe some strange letter, package, or meeting on some literary event?
Well, I mean, there've been lots. I mean, the one or two people who've contacted me and said, look, a member of my family was murdered. The police cannot find the culprit. Can you help? They think because I write crime fiction, I can do detective work. And I've got to write back and apologize and say I can't do that. That's not my skill. My skill is making stuff up, not dealing with the real world. And then, of course, there was meeting John Rebus, the real Rebus, who I met, halfway through the writing the series. There he was living quietly in Edinburgh. I had no idea. Gangsters who are fans of the books, and they in an interview they will say, "Oh yeah, when I get out of jail, I'm going to write a crime novel, and Mr. Rankin is going to help me." And I'm always scared they will knock on my door one day. I've had some pretty strange meetings. But, it's all interesting. It keeps life interesting, I must say.
Okay, I'm very glad for this talk. Thank you very much for visiting Zabójczy Pocisk, so-called Deadly Projectile. And this is the name of this segment. Thank you very much. Nazywam się Adam Podlewski. Gościliśmy naszego wspaniałego pisarza Iana Rankina. Do zobaczenia w następnym odcinku Zabójczego Pocisku.